The JonBenét Ramsey case. The unsolved murder for nearly 30 years. A bloody Christmas. The tragic night in Boulder. A peaceful town. A mansion decorated for Christmas. And a small body found in the basement. It's more than just a murder. It's a maze of mysteries, lies, and ghosts that have been lurking in every wall of the Ramsey house for nearly 30 years. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like to support, share for your friends to explore, and subscribe to 2D Mystery so you don't miss any mysteries that are about to be revealed. Case introduction. Darkness amidst the holiday lights. On December 26, 1996, in Boulder, Colorado, a town known as one of the most livable places in America, police received a strange call from a panicked mother, Patsy Ramsey. She said her 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét Patricia Ramsey, had been kidnapped. A 3-page ransom note was found on the stairs leading to the basement. But the strangeness did not stop there. Just hours later, while police were still investigating the scene, John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, discovered his daughter's body in the basement of their house. She was found beaten, bound, her mouth covered with duct tape and a rope around her neck. JonBenét's death instantly became a national sensation, not only because of the brutality of the case, but also because the victim was a girl who was dubbed the Little Miss America, famous for her angelic beauty in child beauty pageants. From then on, America entered an unprecedented delusion, where everything was flashy on the outside, but inside was a bottomless abyss. JonBenét, the angel in real life. JonBenét was not just an ordinary child. She was the epitome of child beauty pageant culture, with her ruffled dresses, gorgeous makeup, and radiant smile for the camera. Born in 1990, JonBenét was the daughter of John Ramsey, a successful tech entrepreneur, and Patsy Ramsey, a former Miss West Virginia. They were the epitome of the American dream, rich, beautiful, and admired by society. But the dark side of child pageants, where children are turned into objects of adult entertainment, has always existed. And when JonBenét was murdered, the public began to wonder, could the glamorous facade hide a terrible secret? The fateful morning, the 5:52 a.m. call. Patsy called the police early on the morning of December 26th. She said that when she woke up to make breakfast, she found a ransom note on the stairs, and JonBenét was nowhere to be found. In the note, the kidnapper demanded a ransom of $118,000. An oddly similar figure to John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. The contents of the note were also unusually bizarre. 3 pages long, with cinematic language that sounded more like it had been copied from an action movie than the words of a real criminal. This led analysts to believe the letter was a fake, and that someone in the house had written it. Shocking discovery: body in the basement. After police evacuated family and friends from the house, John Ramsey searched the basement, which had not been thoroughly examined. There, he discovered his daughter's body, wrapped in a white blanket, with a severe head injury and a strangled neck with a rope secured with a broom handle. What was suspicious was that instead of letting the police examine the scene, Mr. Ramsey carried the body into the living room, an act considered tampering with evidence. From then on, the Ramsey family became the focus of suspicion throughout the entire investigation. The weak trail and police mistakes. The JonBenét case is a prime example of poor investigation. Boulder police, who had never handled a murder case of this magnitude, allowed dozens of people to enter and exit the scene before sealing it off. No one had searched the entire house until John Ramsey found the body. Biological evidence was cross-contaminated. Traces at the crime scene were disturbed. These elementary mistakes ruined the chance of solving the case at the most crucial stage. Furthermore, the police did not seriously question family members immediately, but let their lawyers intervene, causing the investigation to come to a standstill. Chapter 2. Mysterious Clues and Initial Theories. If this wasn't a break-in, then who in this house did JonBenét's death? And if no one was guilty, then why so many creepy coincidences? Signs of a staged kidnapping? From the very beginning, investigators sensed something was off with the Ramsey story. Boulder police suspected that the ransom note, a typical element of kidnappings, was unusual. It was 3 pages long, while ransom notes are usually brief and to the point. The writing style was cinematic, with lines like, "We are a small foreign faction," more reminiscent of a 90s action movie than the tone of a real criminal. The ransom was $118,000, an odd match for the Christmas bonus John Ramsey had received from the company, a detail that would have been hard to come by unless the writer had been very close to him. The FBI's tentative conclusion: the note was probably written after JonBenét's death to make up for a kidnapping. The house showed no signs of forced entry. Investigators searched the Ramseys' mansion, a 12,000 square foot structure with multiple floors, nooks, and an elaborate basement. But they found no obvious signs of forced entry. No windows or doors had been forced open. No footprints in the snow around the house, which was remarkable considering the heavy snowfall that day. Police said there was no evidence that anyone had entered or exited the house that night. If it wasn't an outsider who entered the house, who killed her? Unusual behavior of the parents. After JonBenét's body was found, John Ramsey did not appear stunned or cry hysterically as one would expect of a father who lost his child. But on the contrary, he was unusually in control of his emotions. Patsy Ramsey changed her story several times. In several interviews, she said she went downstairs and accidentally found a letter on the stairs. But then, at other times, she said she tripped over the letter. This detail led linguistics experts to believe that Patsy was not telling the correct time series or was deliberately misleading. Hypothesis number 1. The parents were the killers? This was the first and most popular theory among the public at the time. The Ramseys had killed their daughter in a fit of rage or accident, and then staged a kidnapping scenario to cover up their crime. The basis for this theory is JonBenét's death included head trauma and strangulation, suggesting that she may have been knocked unconscious and then strangled to make it look like a murder. Experts believe the strangulation device was made from a broomstick in the house, meaning the murder weapon was not prepared in advance. Bruises and injuries to JonBenét's private parts suggest that she may have been abused, although there were no obvious signs of rape. What makes this theory even more suspicious? JonBenét's parents refused to cooperate with the police for months, speaking only through their lawyers. Theory number 2. Was Burke's brother the killer? Another theory that has emerged and shaken public opinion is that Burke Ramsey, JonBenét's 9-year-old brother, may have killed his sister in a fit of childish rage, perhaps out of jealousy or a minor argument that turned catastrophic. This theory is based on traces in JonBenét's stomach suggested she had eaten pineapple before she died, and a bowl of pineapple was found on the kitchen table with Burke's fingerprints on it. During her initial interview, Burke was completely shielded from the media and had unusually cold, emotional expressions. However, police found no physical evidence to incriminate Burke, and forensic experts determined JonBenét's injuries were too severe for a 9-year-old boy to have inflicted. Theory number 3. The mysterious intruder? Some also believe that a psychopath secretly entered the house, perhaps through a basement window, and murdered JonBenet in a brutal act of depravity. They cite, unusual DNA was found on JonBenet's clothing, not matched to anyone in the family. Some of the basement windows were slightly cracked, and there were signs of dirt being disturbed, though it was unclear whether the stains were recent or old. There had been previous break-ins into wealthy homes in Boulder without taking property, which seemed to be the work of a guilt seeker. The problem: there were no surveillance cameras, no witnesses, and no physical evidence strong enough to identify the suspect. Strange and unexplainable signs. A passage in the blackmail note was almost verbatim copied from a movie called Dirty Harry, leading many to believe that the writer was familiar with American movies. Analysts believe the note was written in Ramsey's own home, as a notepad and pen matched items in the home, and there were some test scribbles torn away. Notably, traces of tape and rope were found nowhere else but in the Ramsey home. The investigation hit a dead end, with hundreds of leads, but no legal evidence strong enough to convict anyone. The JonBenét Ramsey case quickly fell into a state of deadlock, a complete impasse. The Ramsey family denied all accusations, hired the best lawyers, and hired PR experts to direct the media. The Boulder police were heavily criticized for damaging the scene, failing to investigate promptly, and allowing evidence to be destroyed. And so a case that seemed to have all the elements to be solved fell into a thick fog with no way out. Chapter 3. The Suspects, the Crime in Their Eyes? Father John Ramsey, symbol of pain or body hider. JonBenét Ramsey, a successful businessman, exemplary husband, and loving father, seems an unlikely person to be involved in such a heinous crime. But what happens behind the closed doors of perfect families? On that fateful morning, it was John who discovered his daughter's body in the basement. But instead of waiting for the police, he picked her up, disrupting the entire crime scene. Was this shocked rush an instinctive act of a father or an unconscious calculation to cover his tracks? John had been a target of investigators because the ransom amount strangely matched the reward he received that year. His strangely calm behavior after the body was found, hiring a lawyer just one day after his daughter's death. But if he was the culprit, what was his motive? And why were there no obvious signs of abuse or conflict? Patsy Ramsey, tragic mother or master of staging scenes. Patsy, a former beauty queen and mother who was closely associated with JonBenét in beauty pageants, is the most controversial name. Did her obsession with looking perfect cause her to lose the line between love and toxic expectations? The suspicion surrounding her stems from: she was the first to discover and call the police. The voice in the 911 call has been analyzed as acting. Handwriting analysts say the handwriting on the ransom note is quite similar to hers. There is also a darker theory. Patsy accidentally injured her daughter in a fit of rage and then staged the kidnapping with John. But if that were the case, why create such a long, bizarre, and implausibly detailed note? Burke Ramsey, the living child, the only one who can answer. Just 9 years old when JonBenét died, Burke, her older brother, was a living mystery. The media, the police, and the public had huge questions about him. The most popular theory: Burke may have hit his sister in a minor argument, like over food, like the famous pineapple bowl, that resulted in serious consequences. And his parents, in order to protect their son, staged the whole thing to distract from the truth. What makes this theory so shocking is this: Burke was isolated from the police immediately after the incident. In interviews, he displayed strange emotions, sometimes laughing at inappropriate times. When asked about that night, Burke could not remember clearly, or pretended not to remember. Although there was no physical evidence to convict Burke, child psychology suggests that there are cracks in memory that can hide the truth for years. The maid, the inner circle. Linda Hoffman-Pugh, the Ramsey family's maid, testified that she suspected Patsy of being involved in the death. She described Patsy as a loving but often stressed mother who had high expectations of her daughter in competitions. Linda also provided information about the doors in the house, daily routines, important pieces to the puzzle in assessing the feasibility of the intruder theory. Was there something Linda knew but never dared to say? Family friends. Who was the last person to see JonBenét? The Ramseys had a Christmas Eve party at the home of friends Fleet and Priscilla White before the tragedy. They were also their closest friends, but they later suspected John and Patsy. Fleet White had accompanied John down to the basement and witnessed the horrific scene. After that, the relationship between the two families fell apart. Was there something Fleet saw or sensed that changed his mind? Invisible intruders? Suspicious characters in the neighborhood. Several neighbors reported hearing screams on the night of the murder. Someone saw strange lights moving around the Ramsey house. An unidentified man was seen wandering around the neighborhood. From Gary Oliva, a sex offender who lived nearby, to Michael Helgoth, an electronics repairman, there were a series of names that were investigated and then eliminated due to lack of evidence. The big question still hangs. Was there a real intruder, or was it just a perfect killer in the imagination? The shadow of lawyers and PR. Who's rewriting the story? The Ramseys hired lawyers and PR experts almost immediately. They refused to cooperate fully with the police, speaking only through intermediaries. They had every right to do so, but in the eyes of the public, it added to the mystery. Who was trying to control the story? What were they hiding, if not a crime? The public became judge when America suspected. By the late 1990s, America couldn't get over the case. JonBenét wasn't just a victim. She became a symbol of innocence ruined, of what was called beauty murdered in her sleep. Each suspect tried by the public before there was any evidence. Meanwhile, the real culprit, if he is still alive, may be silently observing all, smiling from the shadows. Chapter 4. The clues that never fit together, never fitting together. Head injury and strangulation. Two mechanisms of death. JonBenét was found to have died from two factors: blunt force trauma to the skull and strangulation with a homemade garrote. The strange thing is that both could have been fatal, but no one is sure which happened first. The head injury was severe, leaving a 20-centimeter long fracture in her skull. Yet there was no sign of external bleeding, which meant, was she alive when she was beaten, or was she unconscious? And the garrote, made from nylon rope tied to a broken broom handle, was what strangled JonBenét to death. But why would that be necessary if the victim was unconscious? Murder. Well, the most bizarre murder imaginable. The ransom note was unusually long. A hastily written play? The fact that the ransom note was nearly 3 handwritten pages long, with a tone that was a hybrid between Hollywood drama and a showmanship style, surprised many investigators. Even more strangely, the ransom amount requested was exactly $118,000, the same as John Ramsey's year-end bonus. Coincidence? Or did the writer know the family's financial situation very well? Investigators suspect that the letter was written right in the house, because no one would kidnap someone and sit down to write a letter for 25 minutes right at the scene. The paper and pen were both from the Ramsey family. Some linguistic experts even said that the style of the letter was similar to Patsy Ramsey. But it cannot be concluded by forensic science. Could it be that someone intentionally wrote a kidnapping for ransom scenario to distract from another truth? No signs of forced entry, but the house had an open door. Boulder police confirmed there was no sign of forced entry at the Ramseys' home. The doors were intact. There were no broken windows, forced locks, or strange footprints in the snow surrounding the house. However, a small hatch in the basement was found ajar. Several family members said they often forgot to lock the door. There were also signs of disturbed dust, but no obvious signs of an intruder. If the killer didn't come from outside, then who was in the house? A highly sophisticated intruder or a family member playing the victim? Pineapple. The fateful pineapple on the kitchen counter. A bowl of pineapple was found on the kitchen counter, and JonBenét's stomach contained undigested pineapple. This suggests she ate pineapple shortly before her death. The problem is, no one in the family admitted to feeding the girl pineapple that night. Burke Ramsey's fingerprints were found on the glass next to the bowl of pineapple. Many theories suggest that there was a conflict between the two children over food, leading to serious consequences. But that is just a theory. There is no conclusive evidence. An everyday dish or the smallest detail that led to the whole tragedy. Unknown DNA on JonBenét's clothes. A hopeful clue or bait. Forensic analysis found traces of unidentified DNA, not matching anyone in the Ramsey family, on JonBenét's underwear. This was once considered a way out for the Ramseys when the investigation was at a standstill. However, scientists later discovered that this DNA could have been from the industrial manufacturing or packaging process, meaning it was unlikely to have come from the attacker. So, everything is back to square one. The killer's trace, or just a shadow, someone wants people to believe. The disturbed timeline, the strange 8 hours of Christmas Eve, the hours between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. that day. Everything in the Ramsey house seemed to freeze. Patsy said she woke up at 5:30 a.m. and discovered the letter. But that time didn't match JonBenét's body temperature, suggesting she had been dead, possibly the night before. John said he slept through the night, not hearing anything. But why did he find his daughter's body the first time he went into the basement, when many police officers had searched and found nothing? What happened in that quiet house? Was it an unusually deep sleep or a deliberate silence? The 911 call, the last sounds? The 911 call was made by Patsy at 5:52 a.m. on December 26th. She reported her daughter's kidnapping and read the contents of a letter. But the special thing is, at the end of the call, when Patsy thought she had hung up, there was still an echo. Some audio experts confirmed a child's voice, apparently Burke, could be heard talking, even though Patsy had said the boy was sleeping. And the man's voice and Patsy's voice were tense, completely different from when they made the call. However, the FBI said those sounds were not clear enough to draw a conclusion. There were voices talking, or was it just a hallucination from the desire to find the truth? Finally, a picture torn from the inside. From conflicting signs, mismatched DNA, confusing handwriting, hazy timing, to cold expressions in interviews. Every clue had its own meaning, but could not be put together a complete story. Each piece can be a key or a psychological trap. Is it because there are so many details that seem real that it is even harder to know what is real? Or is it because this picture was never meant to be complete in the first place? Chapter 5: Unsolved Mysteries and Open Endings. The search for truth continues. Conflicting theories that never end. The JonBenét Ramsey case has been an unsolved puzzle for nearly 3 decades. From suspected family members and intruders to complex theories about psychology and personal motives, every story has yet to be definitively verified. Each theory has its own strengths and weaknesses, but always encounters inexplicable contradictions. Does the truth lie in that house? Or is a ghost from the past still shrouding the entire case? Advanced forensic technology and new discoveries. In recent years, with the development of new generation forensic technology and DNA, many samples in the case have been retested. Some results have provided new clues, such as previously unidentified DNA and analysis of fingerprints hidden deep in the evidence. However, instead of clarifying the case, these discoveries raise more questions and even obscure the overall picture. Do the mysteries become more complicated as technology advances? Media pressure and influence on the investigation. There is no denying that the media has played a huge role in the JonBenét Ramsey case. Since its inception, a series of programs, articles, documentaries, and podcasts have explored every aspect. Under the pressure of public opinion and great interest, the investigation process is sometimes affected. Many details are distorted or forgotten. Is the popularity of the case also the biggest obstacle on the path to finding the truth? Mysterious characters who have never appeared. In addition to the Ramsey family, some lesser-known characters are rumored to be involved in the case. They can be friends, acquaintances, or even people who used to work in the house. These characters hold secrets that no one has been able to reveal and have been mentioned many times in private discussions. Is there a shadow person who holds the key to the case? Curses and legends surrounding the case. The JonBenét Ramsey case is not just a simple criminal case, but has gradually become the subject of many legends, curses, and mysterious spiritual phenomena. Some people believe that the Ramsey house has a dark energy, where the girl's soul has not been able to rest. Stories of ghosts, strange noises, and mysterious phenomena surrounding the house are still told. Is there an invisible force intervening, keeping the mystery forever unresolved? The public's obsession and thirst for justice. JonBenét Ramsey is not only an innocent child who was murdered, but also a symbol of loss, of dreams taken away and trust betrayed. More than 28 years have passed, and the public has continued to follow, discuss, and call for justice for the girl. It is this thirst that has kept the case alive, making it never sink into oblivion. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere out of sight, just waiting to be revealed one day. The journey has no end. Despite many years, countless investigations, and advanced technology, the JonBenét Ramsey case has yet to be finally solved. The obscure mysteries, the confusing details, and the unanswered questions continue to haunt those who care. The case is like a maze with no way out, where the truth is hidden in the darkness of doubt and mystery. Maybe one day the curtain will rise. But for now, all we can do is wait and keep asking questions.